Commission's Certificate of Appropriateness Committee. My name is Wes Tripp, and I'm chair of the committee. The COA Committee is a quasi-judicial body governed by North Carolina law and the city's Unified Development Ordinance. We are authorized to hear requests for certificates of appropriateness, which is why you all are here today. We'll go ahead and get started with introductions of commissioners and then staff. We'll start all on my left and then work my way down.
Hi, I'm Melissa. I'm an architect here in Raleigh.
Hi, I'm Rob Allen. I'm a resident of the Boylan Heights Historic District and work with an architecture firm locally. And this is my third year on the commission.
Again, my name is Wes Tripp. I'm chair of the committee, and I'm an attorney here in Raleigh.
My name is Bong Lei. I'm an architect here in Raleigh and have a focus in preservation and restoration.
Hi, I'm Trishana Sanchez. I am an architectural designer for a local firm here in Raleigh.
All right, staff?
Good evening, everyone. I'm Colette Kinane. I'm a senior preservation planner. I have been with the city for 7 years next week, and I have a master's degree in historic preservation.
Good evening. I'm Erin Morton Pugh. I've been with the city now 5 years, about a month ago. And I also have a master's in historic preservation.
And our attorney.
Molly Gross, attorney to the board.
All right, I'll note that a quorum is here and present today. First up is approval of the agenda as published. I'll entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Next, we have approval of the minutes from the January 23, 2025 meeting. I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes as published.
Move to approve the minutes.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Staff, any minor works approved in the last month?
There were 9 minor works approved in the past month, and we would like to just add a reminder that there is a list of minor works approved from the last month attached to the agenda, and you can also find those applications on the city's website.
Thank you. Now I'm going to provide an introduction to quasi-judicial hearings before we get started today. In hearing cases, this committee conducts a quasi-judicial evidentiary hearing. That means that the hearing today is like a court hearing. State law sets specific procedures and rules concerning how this committee must make its decisions. These rules are different from some other types of land use decisions like rezoning cases, which are legislative in nature. The committee's decisions are constrained by the standard of review set forth in state law and the UDO and the facts presented at tonight's hearings. The committee hears and considers evidence presented at the hearing and applies the standards set forth in state law and the city's ordinance. The committee must base its decisions upon competent, material, and substantial evidence presented at the hearing. If you will be speaking as a witness, please focus on the facts and the standard, not personal preference or opinion. Participation is limited. This meeting is open to the public and everyone is welcome to watch. Parties have rights to participate fully. The parties may present evidence, call witnesses, and make legal arguments. Witnesses may testify as to the facts to which they are competent to testify, so long as those facts relate to the legal standard. In addition, lay or non-expert witness testimony is limited to facts and not opinions. For certain topics, the committee needs to hear opinion testimony from expert witnesses. Those topics include projections about impacts on property values and projections about impacts on traffic safety. So with all that said, we are now ready to move on to the evidentiary hearings on today's agenda. The first item is COA 135-2024, 909 Oberlin Road, and I'll recognize staff for their presentation.
So as you just mentioned, this is for 909 Oberlin, which is in the Oberlin Village Historic District. This application is returning to you from a previous meeting. The nature of the request has changed slightly. It is still to construct a new primary structure, 2-car rear garage, install a driveway and front walk, remove trees, and alter landscaping. And this is a view of the previous structure that sat on the site. An abbreviated summary of staff concerns are built area and built mass, congruity, especially for the full concrete driveway and parking area, sided front railings, vertically oriented lap siding, garage, square, single light, mini windows, fenestration pattern, and full glass front door. Some construction details were not provided. Some material details were not provided. No replacement trees are proposed, and standard materials and details typically provided as conditions. And the applicant does have a presentation and some additional new information.
All right, I'll recognize the applicant for their presentation. Please come forward and introduce yourselves.
Good evening. My name is Diane Becker. I'm the attorney for Copper Builders, and Mr. Walker is going to present on our behalf.
All right, we'll go ahead and swear Mr. Walker in. Please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're about to provide is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. You may proceed.
Thank you. Members of the commission, first of all, please do not be alarmed by the sheer weight of what we're handing you. About a dozen of those sheets are enough information where you yourself could build the standing roof seam building that we're proposing on this house. The changes that we have made are proposed on here, and I'm not sure how to go back to that one list. Colleen, how do I go back to that one list, the first list with the blue condition, the staff concerns?
Oh, I didn't add that.
You just read it off of there.
Oh, yeah.
Sorry.
If you would move the mouse towards the bottom of the screen. Yeah, there you go. And then click that button. Yeah.
Okay, there.
There you go.
All right. I want to speak directly to the concerns that were listed here by staff. The report has now been amended to show the built area and built mass that are proposed. The built area for this project is 46.6%, which is in the range of the neighborhood, which is between 8% and 77%. And then also the built mass proposed is 26.3%, which fits within the contributing buildings range that are between 6 and 40% that are existing today. The concrete driveway. We currently are proposed to having a concrete driveway running down the side. The staff has had some concerns there. Some of the driveways in the district are gravel or are unpaved. Obviously, we would prefer to have a concrete driveway. If it would help with the acceptance of this project, we would consider doing a carriage-style driveway with the grass strip down the middle, if that would help. That would be part of our revisions, if that was seen as a positive. The construction details and the section drawings for that are held in this package that we sent you, or that we have given you. I think the third, let's see here, the fourth sheet is the proposed rear elevation. There was a question about whether or not I think one of the questions was there was a screen proposed, and they were asking that the screen would be between the columns instead of behind the columns, and we don't have a problem with doing that. Also, there was a question of, on the elevations, if the front door that was shown was in fact a storm door or a full glass front door. I want to make sure to say specifically it is a full glass front door. That's not this, the elevation does not in fact show a storm door. We've added primary lap siding, which would be fiber cement. I know there was a question at one time, and I still would like to hear what the commission feels about doing either rough or smooth side out. I don't know if there was a preference for that. We would be willing to adhere to whichever the the commission asked for. The original proposal had no replacement trees proposed, but we have in this document there is a landscape plan where we have circled that have some trees that are specified that if you want us to change, we can change them to. We have a list of about 5 varieties of oak instead of having like the flowering cherry tree and the styrax. We would convert those to oak trees if that was the mood of the commission. And I believe I have Michael here from Copper Builders. If you want to speak on specific colors or stain styles, we could go through that. I didn't know if that was something specifically that the council may or commission may be interested in. There were a lot of small details that were added. One of which was the setback designations on the original plan showed to the front porch. They should have gone to the front wall. The plans have been changed to show that, in fact, the front wall, I think on the plot plan, the first sheet on your list, there is two dimension strings. One is a 21-foot to the porch, and the other one is 25.9 to the wall, to the front of the building, which meets the sawtooth kind of existing condition that is on the case. We have expanded the designation between the building heights. We've added the conditions of the, we have a list of, on page 29, we have a list of the paint choices on all the facades. And if you want to go through, we can go through each of the fenestration details on the architecture of the building if you want to do that. But we have shown, we have added details or reference points from other homes in the district that those were kind of emulated from. You tell us what you would want us to do, and we would be glad to do that. Finally, the one thing that I wanted to point out, when we did the application for removal of trees on this project, there was one that was missed in the list. It is an 8-inch oak that is in the backyard. And so what we have done is we have gone through and looked at the site plan, and we have it listed. If the commission does not have an issue with removing that final tree, the site plan can hold as it states right now. If they want to keep the 8-inch oak, then it's simply just shifting the garage down a few feet and the drive and the sidewalk that goes from the back of the porch to the garage. That would be the only change if the commission is more interested in keeping that final existing tree. And I've tried to pare down the dozens and dozens of pages of revisions down to what I think the commission is most concerned with. If you have any questions, I'll be glad to answer them.
All right, thank you. Are there any members of the public who wish to provide comment on the application? All right, seeing none, we'll proceed with committee questions.
Good evening. Have a couple questions.
Sure.
Thanks for the updated application and information. So just a couple of things. I think first you mentioned smooth side or textured side out.
Yes.
For cementitious siding.
Yes.
We typically ask for the smooth side out, so that would be one of a potential condition.
Not a problem. Not a problem.
And understand that you would entertain, you said you would entertain the strip driveway, but it's shown in one of these new.
Yes, it is, and that's why we showed both ways. So if the commission feels that is an improvement, then we will move the site plan to keep that grass strip in the middle.
Okay, thank you. And you mentioned the sort of sawtooth grain frontage along Oberlin.
Yes.
I appreciate the diagram that's in your submission that sort of shows those setbacks. It does look like the proposed house it's negligible, but it's like 4 feet further away from the street maybe than some of the others that are like 17 or 18. Could you just help me understand why it seems within a reasonable tolerance? I'm just curious, is there a grading or utility issue? Why?
It was, the issue was the existing trees that are in the corner. We wanted to get the
Okay.
house away from the trees as far as we could.
Great. And next question is about could you help us a little bit understand, if we look at one of your site plans, the tree that you mentioned was not labeled in your prior demolition
Yes.
approval, but you're bringing forth to us now, just so we can understand?
We found the error between the two applications.
Okay.
And we have come up with a solution for both situations, and we will bow to the consideration of the commission, which one they think is the better solution.
Okay, and could you just, you were going through a lot of options.
Sorry.
No, I'm appreciative of them. I'm looking at a site plan, and you mentioned shifting the garage. Could you just let us know where, or does the tree appear on any of the?
It does, it
Okay.
does. I'm sorry.
That's all right.
If I go back to the P again, or just go down, just find my way down.
No, if you,
That one? Okay,
and then.
scroll. Scroll. All right, that is the site plan as it stands today. And if you want me to stop as we scroll through any of these, please let me know. And I apologize for the question. 21, okay, off to 21. Nope, back up, sorry. You see on 18, that is the location of the oak.
Okay.
And so back, and I think we go to 20, is it 21? No, there was another section. But basically, let me just go back to that one for simplicity's sake, for simplicity, I should say. Basically, what we would do is we would take that sidewalk that goes from the back porch to the garage and slide it away from the tree. And then we would slide the garage, I think about 4 feet along with it. So the sidewalk there's a door that's on that side of the garage. So we would just slide it to match that new location of the sidewalk coming from the back of the house.
Okay.
Is that plan south?
Yes.
Okay. And then, okay, that's helpful. Thanks for pointing that out. Just the last question, and I'm sorry if you feel like this was brought up previously. I was unable to attend your first hearing, so I'm sorry. The front dormer elevation, the application has tons of great examples from the district. Just one distinction, and I don't know if I'm not asking you to change anything, just to give consideration to. All the examples show, if I'm not mistaken, windows that are grouped together under a dormer. And these are individual punches, which to me feels less congruous. And, we don't talk about what's going on the interior, but you've included an interior plan, so I can see why that is. Maybe it was purely out of reconciling the interior plan,
It
but
was to make sure all the interior rooms have as much light on from that side of the building.
understood. Did you look at any options where windows were grouped together?
May
Okay,
have been, yes.
all right.
It just kind of wreaked havoc in the floor plan of the second story.
I can understand. Okay, Mr. Chair, I don't have any other questions at this time.
Any additional questions from the committee?
Can you speak a little bit to why the driveway was preferred over, say, a off-street pad in the front?
The driveway is basically to allow the access to the garage. Given how relatively close the house is to the front of the street, we didn't want that dominant pad to sit out front, so we ran the sidewalk down the side and then created the garage in the backyard that is shorter than the house, so it doesn't read from the street. So we were focused more on the facade of the house than anything else.
In regards to the built mass, do you have any examples of other houses in the district where you have a parapet roof on a residential building?
Let's see if I have one that specifically speaks to that. Well, let's see. I don't believe I have a specific one listed in front of me. I'm sorry, I do not have that. But what we do have is, there are the questions about the driveway. We went back and checked 2210 Bedford, 2212 Bedford, 2316 Bedford, 2312 Bedford, and 2215 Bedford all have detached rear buildings with driveways, and those are all in the district.
This might more be a question for staff about the tree in the backyard. The demo COA that was approved, was it just to remove all the trees, or were there specific trees to be identified, or is that how it's, you have to identify each tree you want to remove and not just a blanket remove all?
Yes, in the previous application, there were specific trees identified. And I believe in the staff report, we have already addressed the removal of this tree. I don't think it's an addition, because that was already included as part of the project description.
I'm sorry, Colette, could you repeat that?
Yes.
The last part.
Yes. We noted in the staff report that there was a discrepancy in the trees that had been requested for removal previously in this application. So I believe that the staff report already addresses the removal of an additional tree.
Okay, thank you.
Any additional questions from staff? All right, seeing none, we'll close the evidentiary hearing and move to committee discussion. You can have a seat. Thank you.
Thank you.
Start, I think the addition of the strip driveway seems like a good proposal. If I'm just going through the many things that were brought up, I think that's a good one. I might need a minute to read the staff language on the tree. But when you say resolved, Colette, do you mean
Through the tree protection plan?
I just meant that we had already noted in the report that there were additional trees being removed than what had previously been proposed, and that the staff concerns about the lack of replacement trees tied into that.
Okay.
But I believe
Got
that the packet has some additional pages about landscaping that appear to include some,
Plantings.
yes.
Yeah, 16.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think it's the one identified as page 16, shows a tree in the rear yard.
Thanks for pointing that out. I'd like fellow commissioners' input on if we think that replacement is satisfactory to leave the walk as designed. Wes is nodding. Trey, Bong, Melissa, okay.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with the ribbon driveway and the trees, as we've just mentioned.
Oberlin's a pretty busy street, getting busier. I can see the desire for a driveway and why you would want to have a turnaround space in the rear. I think just for the livability of this house, the way it's designed on the lot, I think you would have to have that driveway.
Yeah, and there is, from doing site visit again, been to this house a few times, but there's a bit of a grade drop, which obviously, it's not like one you can just like pull right into either. So even with the driveway, it's gonna be a challenge. So, but I agree with you, the off-street locations are not convenient either.
Obviously, by the numbers, it fits. But it is really hard to find a building in the area that is single-family residential that has a parapet roof. I think that's the only part that really gives me pause, is that you can see so much of that from this. And I have to say, I love the fact that, you know, they're keeping the sawtooth frontage, but unfortunately, it does make that side so much more prominent coming north on Oberlin.
I agree with that point, and also I think mixed with the fact that the dormer on the front, the wide proportion, I don't see any examples of dormers with that wide of a proportion to, you know, the porch below or the residence, the main portion of the residence. So that coupled with the side view of that parapet, it seems not congruent with anything that we're seeing in the district, even though that there are many different styles in this area.
Yeah, I'm struggling with the congruity of the dormer, probably more so than the flat roof portion. You know, we have, related to built mass bong, we've seen some recent cases in this same district where the solution, so the flat roof does help mitigate sort of the height from the street. I completely hear what both you and Melissa are saying about, you know, the overall mass and seeing that from the street. It does mitigate height, though, and sometimes we've seen where roofs are trying to, you know, successfully or otherwise cover that built mass, and that starts to look less compatible with surrounding structures. So, I mean, they are, I feel like they're giving a genuine effort to, you know, to make it feel like it's compatible with the street front.
I can agree with that. I think it's just, it may fit in better in the future. This area is under so much pressure for redevelopment, and the 3 houses that are right next to it are all single-story, much smaller, and obviously of the vernacular of the original neighborhood. I worry that this kind of sets up some language, but then again, it does set a high bar for maintaining a lot of the character of that street frontage. So the good and the bad, I think, are probably equaled out in that sense as far as building mass goes, because they've done a really conscious job of keeping the front small, with the exception of the width of the dormer.
Any further discussion?
I think it would be reasonable to see if the applicant has any responses to the dialogue.
Yeah, we can bring the applicant back up, reopen the evidentiary hearing.
It seems like we're just down to the parapet wall. Is that the question?
I think there's some questions about just, you know, reaching the point where you landed on a parapet wall, or if there's precedent for that, or maybe the compatibility could be with just height and mass in general. And then I think also the dormer width, you know, compared with the other dormer examples shown, they're similar in that they're both dormers, but I don't know that they're otherwise congruous with one another.
Okay. Again, the build mass and the build height are both just absolutely dead center of what's in the district. We tried to downplay the 2-story elevation on the backhand side, which is why we have the dormer up front. So we were trying to show, I guess we were trying to split the difference between a 1-story house and a 2-story house, to be quite honest with you.
Any further questions for the applicant?
I don't believe so.
All right, seeing none, I'll close the evidentiary hearing, bring the matter back to the table for committee discussion. You can have a seat, thank you.
I know we haven't received all the different details and stuff that are associated with this dwelling, and I know that those are forthcoming. But I wonder if there's a way to detail that dormer in such a way that at least the windows would appear somewhat more grouped.
Bong, can you speak straight into the mic?
Oh, certainly.
Just for the folks at home. Thank you.
Yes, I was mentioning that we haven't seen all the details on how they want to develop this, but one of the things I would want to know is if it would be possible to use those same details to create a panelized or more ribbon-type window appearance using details rather than punched openings to help with that.
You've stated it, the applicant has approached. May we reopen the evidentiary?
Yeah, I also just want to make the comment that, I mean, there appears to be a concern among the majority of the committee about the size of the dormers. We want to avoid designing at the table. I mean, if there's concerns about the size of the dormer, we can express that, and then the applicant can either express their willingness to change that or not, based on what they think is fits within the district and whether it's congruous or not. But yeah, we'll reopen the evidentiary hearing and hear again from the applicant.
I'm not sure if we can discuss a dormer change in a vacuum, but
Right.
as far as the windows go, I was just conferring with my client, and if the commission would rather see a grouping of windows instead of a straight line or a different type of window, like you had said, a more rectangular horizontal window layout up there, they are open for that. They would be able to do that.
And I would be satisfied with even like groupings of two. It's to
We
me
do that.
it's the and Mr. Chair, I understand we're not supposed to be designing it, but there's several examples that are just distinctly different, and so all dormers are not the same. So I think it's worth having the discussion, and I think the applicant can probably get there, at least from my perspective. I think it's working that way. Grouping, or there are several. So if I look at your examples that were provided in the application, there's several that have groupings of two under a smaller dormer. There's some wider dormers where they're grouped sort of in a very horizontal configuration. I think seeking some form of compatibility with some of the examples provided would make us feel better about the congruity of that front elevation.
If we commit to doing a grouping of the windows in the second story, and I'm trying to figure out how to word this correctly, break the dormer at least once, will that help?
I believe so. I'm speaking for myself here. We would need to entertain committee discussion. You do have a few examples of longer dormers that do have like a group of two. So understand there's a hardship with the plan you're trying to work with, and I'm appreciative of that. So if grouping them into groups of two helped, I think that would be more aligned if it doesn't wreck the plan.
That's fine.
But
We
I'll
can do
see
that.
what my fellow committee members have to say.
We could commit to grouping the windows in pairs. We can do that.
I agree. I think that the applicant understands the intent.
We do.
Any further questions for the applicant? Seeing none, we'll close the evidentiary hearing and bring the matter back to the table for discussion.
This is a question for staff. Was there an ongoing concern regarding the full glass front door?
As far as I can recall, there was one photo provided of a contributing property from the image, appeared to potentially be a full glass front door. However, I believe it is actually a storm door in the image. So evidence was not provided to show that is a common door type in the historic district. That tends to be a more modern convention.
I noted that as well through my time in the neighborhood, looking around. It does seem like that Van Dyke, which is just around the corner, does have some more contemporary homes. They still have solid doors, but there's lights in them. So I would like to keep that in consideration as we discuss.
So do we want to see a redesign of a dormer at next month's meeting, or can we condition this appropriately today?
Is there still any discussion about the parapet? I think there has been, we said, a lot of care taken for the facade and relating it to, the other houses on that same street, but then it seems like we lose all of that same sort of care and attention to congruity when we move to the side and back of the residence.
I'm real torn on that because, across the street, the buildings are larger and the mass seems more appropriate. Further back beyond the street front, as you get deeper into the neighborhood, there are more multifamily buildings that are parapet and 3 stories, 4 stories tall, so that the area is changing. And while it seems like it doesn't fit in right now, I think that as that area develops, it will probably be more congruent. Again, the only thing that makes me pause, though, is that the 3 buildings next to it are contributing, and they are single-story and diminutive in scale compared to it.
I'm sympathetic to your question. I'm trying to think of what the alternatives would be, and they're probably a low slope, a very low slope gable. That don't 6 1/2 dozen to me, if that's better. And I know we're not trying to legislate design here, but congruity, that might make it more congruous. We would need to see it.
Right.
I think, but if we were to defer, that would be a reasonable ask of the applicant to provide more evidence to the proposed, side elevations, I think.
Yeah.
I think, Rob, you were subtly hinting at this, but just a general reminder that when you're thinking about congruity in the neighborhood, yes, there are modern structures. Some of them received a COA, some of them were constructed before the district was designated, but congruity should be evaluated considering the historic contributing structures in the neighborhood. So just because a feature exists.
Yeah. Doesn't mean we don't have future precedents, right? Got it.
Well, I think to that point, then, there needs to be some sort of evidence that this roof line exists in a single story, then, from this district.
Yeah. Mr. Chair, my comfort would be with deferring, but maybe we bring the applicant up to make sure they feel like they have clear marching orders, or do you think that's unreasonable?
I think we can just do a nod from the audience. Do you feel like you've gotten enough guidance, or do you want to clarify some things? We'll go ahead and reopen the evidentiary hearing.
I'll just stand here. We believe we have the clear direction. If the opportunity is the fact that we put that in a condition as possibly an approval tonight.
Can you speak in the microphone, please?
I'm sorry.
I can't hear you.
We understand what you're asking for. We just, if it was possible to make that as possibly as a condition to any kind of consideration of any kind of approval from here, instead of waiting for another month. We've been through the process for quite a long time. And to retrofit the slope on a parapet wall, on a parapet roof, I think it would be relatively small, considering we're already going to regroup the windows as you guys have requested. So that would be my ask of the commission.
I understand the frustration with the timeline and wanting to try to get this done as quickly as possible. And
not that I don't enjoy seeing you. But.
Same, likewise. And you only meet once a month, and that's another issue. But we're going to want to see it and have staff have the opportunity to put their eyes on it and provide their opinion and analysis on that as well. So with that said, I'll close the evidentiary hearing. We'll bring the matter back to the table and move that the matter be deferred to the March 27, 2025 COA meeting. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. All right, next is COA 153, 2024. Next matter on the agenda, 305 Kinsey Street. I'll recognize staff for their presentation when they're ready.
All right, this is case COA 153, 2024 for 305 Kinsey Street in the Boylan Heights Historic District. The request is to construct a new driveway and to install street-side screen plantings. As a reminder, this is a corner property kind of in two ways. This is an application you reviewed last month, and they have come back with a revised design as requested by the committee. So just a review of the previous site photos that we showed you. This is the north side of the property. Excuse me, moving around to the corner. And then this street side area is where the driveway is proposed. More in the area that was discussed last meeting. And some more street side views, rear yard area. There's no work proposed here. And summary of staff concerns, it's just the mature plantings dimensions were not provided. And the applicant is here. They've provided a revised design that's attached to the packet in the agenda.
All right, I'll recognize the applicant. They can come forward. Please introduce yourselves.
Noah Kilmer.
Jade Brennan.
Jade Brennan. All right. Go ahead and have swear you both in. Please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're about to provide is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Yes. You may proceed.
Did you submit that as an applicant presentation?
Great.
It should be.
This is the only other one I had.
Yeah, perfect. Okay.
All right. Good evening. So just to kind of start off and bring everyone back up to speed, previous iteration of the design had the proposed driveway further to the west of the lot, kind of closer to the front of the house. And at last month's meeting, after some discussion with y'all, we moved the driveway further back on the lot, further to the west there. This helped us increase the length of the ribbons, which was another kind of topic of discussion. And then we're still able to kind of hold it off the edge of the building. The placement currently remains outside of the critical root zone of one of the semi-mature magnolias just to the west of the driveway. And then we are also able to keep it behind the kind of jog in the building where the original structure and the previous addition meet. One other note there, with the new length, we have 20 feet on the ribbons from the back of the sidewalk to the ends of the ribbon, and we're still about 5 feet off the house. So a reasonably parked truck could pull off all the way and not be overhanging the sidewalk. One kind of small small piece that was discussed that we looked into, but ultimately didn't end up being possible functionally. One of the comments was the kind of desire for the ribbons to run perpendicular to the side of the house rather than the street. The Transportation Department requires any driveway in the right-of-way be perpendicular to the street. So those turns would happen at the property line, which didn't give enough room for a car to make that turn without wheels dipping off of the ribbons. So we kind of deemed it as not possible. And then given the kind of meeting the other considerations, we felt like this was a positive solution. To the plantings, for some reason they're not showing up on these plans. Those would be going in the area to the east of that driveway. They'll end up being in the 3-ish wide and tall range, ornamental grasses and low shrubs in that area.
All right, anything else?
That's all for me.
Okay. Are there any members of the public who wish to provide comment on the application? All right, seeing none, we'll proceed with committee questions.
Thanks for the updated application. Looks good. I think it fits much better. There was the one staff concern about just maintaining the plantings at a 42-inch height. Is that a reasonable condition based on what's being proposed?
Yeah, that should be reasonable. They'll top out at about 3 foot, so 36 tall
Okay.
and 36 wide.
Okay. I don't have any further questions.
All right, any other questions from the committee? All right, hearing none, we'll close the evidentiary hearing, move the matter to the table. Thank you very much. Any discussion from the committee?
I'll make a motion. Move that based on the evidence presented within the application and the staff report and the testimony we heard in the evidentiary hearing, that we approve the application with the one condition that new plantings be kept trimmed no more than 42 inches in height.
All right, motion's been made. Is there a second?
Second.
Question before the committee is approval of the application stated, subject to the stated conditions. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Congratulations. The decision will be official after next month's meeting when the minutes are approved and signed. So thank you so much. Next on the agenda is item number 3, COA 136, 2024, 415 North Boundary Street. I'll recognize staff for their presentation.
This is case COA 136, 2024 for 415 North Boundary Street in the Oakwood Historic District. You last reviewed this case in December, and this request has been revised since then. So the current work request is to install artificial turf and install gravel along the west side of the driveway. We highlighted in the staff report how all the other changes that were in the work request have been handled. So if you have questions about any of those applications or enforcement actions, let me know during the hearing and we can clarify. These are views of the property. It's a corner property from Boundary Street. The requested changes are on this west side of the lot, the existing driveway. These are old pictures, so the turf request has been amended. Much of this has been removed, and that's provided in the revised application materials by the applicant. But just a view of the lot configuration. Summary of staff concerns are evidence to support the congruity of artificial turf as a site feature. Surfacing material was not provided, Evidence to support the extent of the proposed coverage was not provided, and evidence demonstrating the inability to grow organic material or to handle stormwater runoff on the site through other means was not provided. Also, reversibility of the proposed installation may be difficult. And the applicants are here to answer questions. Yeah, that's all I've got.
All right, thank you. I'll recognize the applicant. Please come forward. Please introduce yourselves.
Jerry Stifelman.
Tracy Oliveto.
All right, can you please raise your right hands? Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to provide is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. You may proceed.
Does this go to our document?
That one's done. Did you submit a presentation specifically, or just the application?
You responded.
Yeah, that'd be great. We have a new system to get things pulled up in here. Thank you. Yep, there it is.
Back to the house. Up to the neighbors.
Well, you can scroll on that if you got any trouble.
Sorry, I'm a Mac person. How do I go from page to page?
Yeah, you should be either able to scroll or, oh, it might make you close, exit,
Oh, okay.
right there. That one.
Got it.
Oh. I'm not any better with the mouse, so. Sorry, can I? Get rid of that. And then, so you can scroll.
Okay. I can scroll. Sorry, okay, here's working. Thank you for your patience. This is an after-the-fact COA, so giving a little context that we live in Oakwood for the same reason most people do. We appreciate the historic character of the neighborhood. We really appreciate it, and we believe the work the commission does is important. And still having, okay. That's the property. Because it's so long, we included pictures of each side so you could see. Since the last hearing, we've removed all the turf in front of our house and installed natural grass.
And the gravel.
Oh, you also removed all the gravel. And you can see pictures here during the installation. Then there's an additional fence on either side of the garage that we're actually starting tomorrow that was approved under a separate minor work COA. One of the motivations of this was to further obscure the turf we're asking permission for in the backyard. We included this because one of the things that's unique about our house is that it really has very little exterior area. It's kind of a patchwork, and the artificial turf has helped us kind of weave a usable yard out of those little areas. You see the front of our house? This is recent? Yeah, this tells. We didn't change that. And here you can see the natural grass that we've now installed. The fence on either side is what we've just kind of mocked up to indicate what it would look like. And here you can see the brighter green is where we're asking for synthetic turf. The darker green is what we've replaced and is now natural grass. And showing that the rear yard is now obscured by the house, the garage, or fencing. And there's the measurements. And these are pictures from last time. So now on the far left, the east side of the garage, the part that is in the very front would be natural grass. And on the between the garage and the house, that is now natural grass, pretty much just in front of where you see the HVAC unit. The turf that we've installed follows the existing contours of the property, and it was chosen based upon its natural, i.e. congruous appearance. One thing to note is the turf is 1.57 inches high, so it's a little bit, almost an inch taller than the turf installed with approval at the Merriam-Wynn House. And the other thing we noticed in making the comparisons is the color variation that's part of our turf, which you can see in the sample, helps make it look more natural. What we were aligning with in the guidelines, 1.3, the character, pattern, and rhythm of paintings and other site features within a historic district or landmark property should be preserved through proper maintenance, repair, and the introduction of compatible new or replacement features. So we took great care in keeping all the contours and everything the way it was, and the replacement feature that we did looks natural. And then we were also referencing 1.3.2 in the guidelines to retain and preserve the historic relationship between buildings and the historic landscape features of the landmark or district settings, including site topography, retaining walls, plantings, hedges, streets, walkways, driveways, and parks. None of those things were changed. And these are photos of the turf, and also noting that it's PFAS compliant, which is the California standard, and is constructed of a mix of olive, emerald, field, and lime grass blades and green and yellow thatch to make it look quite natural. The permeability of the grass, as opposed to like the concrete driveways we often see in Oakwood, is favorable to our home drainage. When we moved in, one of the issues was standing water every time it rained and mud. The grass, because of the way it's designed, below the turf is 5 inches of grading, 3 inches of stone grade and compact, and 2 inches of screenings grade and compact, really has helped our permeability. A note as to why this is an after-the-fact COA. When we moved into the house in summer of 2021, we made a few changes: a new fence, additional garage door, garage awning, and a storefront awning, all of which we applied for and received COAs for. When choosing the turf to solve the drainage and mud problem in that small, shady, low-lying yard, we looked at the list of work to determine if we needed to follow another COA. Since per Article 38, we were not altering or removing any gardens, planting beds, or shrubbery, or per Article 46, altering the master plan in any way, it seemed to us clear that there was no need for a COA. I mean, obviously we were wrong, but that was what we're thinking. Also worth noting that we're not the only ones who assumed there's no need for a COA for turf. On the neighborhood listserv, others have posted about installing turf. In each instant, no one on the listserv responded with any concerns around a COA or advice to apply for one. And we put these here as evidence. To those of you who have installed turf in the backyard, I would like some advice or recommendations for covering a small area in the backyard. How well does it work with dogs? Is it a problem with bathroom habits? Can you recommend someone for installation or where to buy it? Another one, we are looking into artificial turf in the run the dogs use in the backyard when they're loose. Does anyone have experience in this area? When we call, it was very expensive to work with a company. I assume they deal with dog spas. This was a relatively small area. Any ideas? And another one, I'm looking for an 8x12 section of turf for a play area. Happy to piece a couple together. Thought I would reach out to the hood and see if anyone had any they wanted to part with. The other thing we wanted to note is the relevance of backyards to the character of the Oakwood Historic District. In the character essay, grass is only mentioned twice, both times specifically only in the context of front yards. Aside from a single reference to sheds and outbuildings, backyards aren't mentioned at all in the character essay. This is that mention. Historically, many houses had small sheds and other outbuildings in the backyard. That's literally the only mention of backyards in that 1,860-word character essay. I think anyone who's been to Oakwood might say that the character is embodied by its topography, its diverse homes, its canopied streets and sidewalks. One would be hard-pressed to argue that its character comes from what is obscured from public view in residents' backyards. The Raleigh Historic District Commission guidelines prioritize front yards, specifically noting that contemporary features and incompatible site features are permitted, so long as they don't compromise historic character. And then the guidelines go on to advise residents to avoid compromising character by making those features less visible from the front yard. And I'll quote from 1.3.11, introduce contemporary equipment or incompatible site features, including satellite dishes, playground equipment, mechanical units, and swimming pools in locations that do not compromise the historical character of the building, site, or district. Locate such features unobtrusively and screen them from view. Historically incongruous features such as raised decks and playground equipment are common in backyards throughout the district. This is at 504 East Jones Street, 702 North Bloodworth Street, 720 North Bloodworth Street, 404 Elm Street. In-ground swimming pools have also been improved in backyards. This is 324 Pell Street. So as residents making use of the guidelines, our choice of natural-looking turf to solve the problem of grass being impossible to maintain in a backyard appears to be consistent with the other contemporary features that are allowed in the neighborhood. Analogous to turf, other contemporary features like playground equipment, raised decks, swimming pools, satellite dishes, plastic infant porch swings, and installed child gates enable residents to better utilize their property while maintaining the kinds of front yards that contribute to the historical character of the district. As a contemporary feature, our turf is designed to look like grass. Since it's 1.57 inches in height and will be blocked by a fence, it is far less visible, that is more obscured, than other contemporary features already permitted in the district. We just put this together on a page because in terms of congruity and being obscured, it seems that our turf in the lower right-hand corner behind the fence is certainly more obscured and less incongruous than these other features. The characteristic topography of the Oakwood District makes it difficult for many residents to maintain a lawn. Due to Oakwood's topography, many yards have challenges with drainage issues and maintaining lawns, especially in the shady backyards that are common in the neighborhood. In fact, this is part of the special character essay, and I'll quote from there. The grid overlays a hilly topography with two valleys between three gentle ridges. Oakwood had historically and still has a heavy canopy of mostly deciduous trees. Due to the fact that our property sits at the bottom of the steep grade of North Boundary Street and that our backyard is largely shaded, we can't maintain a backyard lawn. Turf solves this problem and allows us to make regular, rigorous use of our backyard. This is a letter from our longtime landscaper and yard person, Donald Florence, who owns a company called Big D Yard Service, and I'll read it. I have handled Tracy and Jerry's landscaping since 2012 at their house in Carborough, at the house they were renting in Glasscock Street in Raleigh, and at their current home on North Boundary Street. Over the years, I've added plantings, trimmed trees, taken care of their grass, made stone paths, and other landscaping features. I've been doing landscaping and yard work for over 20 years. Knowing how Tracy and Jerry and their dogs use their yard, I could not see how they could successfully grow and maintain grass on their small patchwork yard. Since it's at the bottom of a hill, the yard holds a lot of water, and it quickly becomes a mud patch, especially when they're throwing 3 balls with dogs every day. I was happy to go with turf as a solution. Sincerely, Donald Florence, Big D for Hire Yard Service. And here's photos from the grass when we moved in, and you can see how it's very, very hard to maintain, and it's muddy. And we included the pictures from the lawn that were submitted as part of the COA for the Merriam Wynn House, because the conditions are quite comparable. And again, more photos from before compared to 500 Blunt Street. A note that others in the district are also making use as turf as a solution to the same problem. We're not including addresses here, but these are photos we've taken in the neighborhood of turf in use to solve similar problems. Based on 111.3, there's a clearly an established principle to allow contemporary features that enable residents to make use of their rear yards. Consistent with this principle, and to assure the character of the district is upheld, we suggest the reasoning established in the Commission's prior approval of turf makes sense here. 1, a challenge to maintaining a lawn. 2, no altering the general plan or removal of existing garden beds, planting beds, or shrubbery. 3, to be obscured from street view. And 4, the use of permeable, high-quality, natural-looking turf. I think that's everything from us.
Thank you. Are there any members of the public who wish to provide comment on the application? Seeing none, we'll proceed with committee questions.
You had mentioned that you had some issues with the topography. Do you have a survey with topography information for us to take a look at and understand how your yard is draining?
No, we don't, just our life experience, which was augmented recently. In fact, when we were here last time, that day our house had flooded we had over 3 feet of water in our basement because of the drainage work they're doing on the sinkhole on East Street, backed us up. But one of the things we learned is the city's been doing forensic work in that area to try to figure it out, is there was an open channel on Boundary Street. There's actually a big pipe under a house that's been abandoned, that's not been abandoned properly. And so that area is a major channel for water in Raleigh, as we've learned from the storm drain people.
Can you describe the efforts that you and your landscape architect have taken to explore any kind of natural vegetation that can work in that area in the backyard?
We didn't plant anything else. We could see, and from the experience of discussing it with the former owners, that grass wasn't going to grow, and we knew how we use a yard. We're not many houses in Oakwood deal with this by like this beautiful front yard with all kinds of lovely plantings, but we use our yard. We run with their dogs in it every day, so just planting something else there might look pretty, but it wouldn't allow us to use it. Do you have anything?
Have you reviewed the staff report for this case?
Yes, I was a little confused by some of the questions from the staff report in this instance, if we want to put them up.
So I'll just ask my question. The staff report compares the installation of this artificial turf to like a permeable paver that increases the built area of the property. What's your response to that?
The turf specifically is designed to look like natural area, and it actually functions better than the compacted dirt that existed before. And in fact, we've had a wedding and an Oakwood Athletic Club in our backyards on that turf well before there was an issue raised, which only came about when we were applying for solar power, and no one had any issue with it or even considered it unnatural or anything like that.
Go ahead.
Do you have any product data that can speak to the longevity of your product or how it's maintained or its maintenance schedule?
Let me see if there's anything else on that page that's here. This is what we took from the manufacturer's website. Yeah. There's a teeny, teeny red dot that the cursor must be on to scroll.
Can you use these buttons?
No.
Are you using the scroll wheel on the mouse? That's
Yeah.
This way? Okay.
It just has to be so exact that. How about this work? This doesn't work.
It worked last time we were here.
That's weird. It keeps moving.
All right. There.
That's so strange.
I think we're getting there.
I don't believe there's any mention in the presentation
for waiting.
about the lifespan.
It's in the link.
Oh,
Yeah, I
okay.
guess we can click on the link. Yeah.
I'm not finding any information on their website yet.
I'll
We
remind
certainly
the-
expect it to last a good long time. It was quite an investment.
I'll remind the committee that we're only to consider evidence that is presented to us. Any other questions from the committee? All right, seeing none, we'll close the evidentiary hearing, bring the matter to the table for discussion. Thank you. You can have a seat.
Thank you.
So I'm a no on this. The Merriman Wynn house is not in the Oakwood district, so it can't really be used as precedent for this application. And even in that application, there was evidence of efforts to try to plant something natural there. In that application, the property where the artificial turf was installed used to be a parking lot, so it wasn't a contributing feature to the historic nature of the property. There's been any other application for artificial turf installation has been denied. And I agree with the staff analysis that this is comparable to a paver that increases the built area. I'm sympathetic to the property owners and their ability or their desire to want to install something that improves the aesthetic features of their backyard and improves the usability of the backyard. But as the guidelines are currently written, I can't approve this.
I guess my question is, what are the specific guidelines? Or is that in the
the-
staff notes?
Yeah, in the staff notes, specifically the guidelines around built area. And the fact that every other COA for installing artificial turf has been denied.
Is it possible to ask why they were denied, or is that something
What's
I
that?
can't ask? Why they were previously denied?
That
Since I don't
mi-
know the history of
Yeah, that-
like turf and like why they may have been denied, like is
That might be
something
a
I
question
don't
for
know?
staff, but it would be in the reasoning would be in the decisions and orders for the COA.
Yes, all of the staff comments regarding congruity are included in the staff report already. I won't rehash that out loud, just in the interest of time. But there have been at least 3 other applications for artificial turf that were specifically denied. And I haven't pulled the decisions or committee discussion from those cases. If that's needed, we can provide it, but not currently.
I mean, and just announcing for the record, I mean, it's already in the staff report, so it's in the record, but specifically referring to guidelines 1.3.1, 1.3.8, 1.3.9, 1.5.5, and 157.
My understanding is less of an aesthetic issue and more of a material choice and how it affects its site.
Any further discussion from the committee?
I think you've said it, Wes.
All right, based on that, I move, based on the evidence presented, the staff report, and the reasoning exhibited during committee discussion, I move that the application be denied. Is there a second? No, sir. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in...
You're not responding to the evidence that we...
Sir, you've had your time to speak. We allowed you to make your presentation. We are now at the point where the committee has discussed and decided the matter. We are going to make our decision. If you do not agree with that decision, you have a right to appeal that decision. Okay? Thank you. Motion's on the floor to deny the application. Was there a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed?
Opposed?
All right, that's going to be a 4-1 vote. Thank you very much. Next application, this is under the new applications, number 1, COA 006, 2025, 603 Northeast Street.
I just did.
Recognize staff for their presentation.
Okay, this is case COA 6, 2025 for 603 Northeast Street in the Oakwood Historic District. The request is to install artificial turf. This is the property immediately adjacent to the case that was just heard, which is why it's at the top of the new applications instead of in line based on its application number. This is a view of the existing property from East Street and the existing driveway. It's an after-the-fact application as well. The request is to install artificial turf in the rear yard areas behind the existing fence. This is just some views of the existing conditions back there. The existing diagonal fence and cattle gate that you see in the images will be submitted as a separate major work at a later date for the next round. The summary of staff concerns are similar to the previous application, supporting the congruity of artificial turf as a site feature servicing material, the extent of the proposed coverage, evidence to demonstrate the inability to grow organic material and handle storm water runoff through other means, and the reversibility of the installation. And we do have application materials for this as well we can pull up.
All right, the applicant is recognized to make their presentation.
Okay, it's scrolling for me, so hopefully that.
He's a Mac guy. Oh, we should swear in too.
Oh, yes. Yeah, just go ahead and swear you both in.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, first, I'll have you introduce yourself once once we're ready.
Thank you. Fiona Matthews.
I'm Chase Deifelman.
Great, thank you. Please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony that the testimony you're about to provide is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Yes.
Thank you so much. So I do just want to point out, I mean, we received the application beforehand. I know it's very similar to the one we just heard before. I would encourage you to, if there's anything different that you wanted to point out or unique about this application that is different from the last one, I would encourage you to do that as opposed to kind of going over what we just heard.
That was going to be a question. That's it.
That sounds good. So we'll just blow through it since we're already, no offense to y'all, we're already at a disadvantage, so we know I don't want to waste y'all's time. So we've gotten married in Oakwood. We've been a part of the Candlelight Tour, hosted the monthly athletic clubs, and the meeting of the Oakwood Garden Club. Much of this has happened in our backyard. Our house is 860 square feet. We consider ourselves lucky to live in one of the last non-added on to tiny craftsman homes from 1923 in the neighborhood. We also are looking for a functional backyard, but I know that's not exactly what y'all are looking for. So we're going to just skip all this. Okay, so I'm also, just in case, I know we're speaking in facts and evidence, I'm an arborist by trade, so I can speak a little bit more to the landscaping concerns from the previous application. Our yard is incredibly shady. I'm showing this in this aerial view. We get about 2 hours of sunlight in a small pocket where the lack of the canopy is. There's a wax myrtle below it.
Right there.
Yeah, right there. So that's about the highest light penetration that our yard gets. Clover and grass, turf, Bermuda, and fescue specifically need about 4 to 6 hours of sustained direct sunlight, which our yard does not provide. Here is initial photos. So we moved in, we purchased the house in March of 2022, and the turf was installed around November. There wasn't significant effort to remediate the soil, but there was efforts to grow. I specifically was hoping for clover, and clover did not grow in our turfed yard.
Very small patches.
Very small patches of clover, but no sustained coverage. This lane used to be a driveway. The shed in the back was we believe a garage. It was installed in around 1953. So that whole area was initially driveway. The level of compaction, as you can see in the far right of that photo, is really degraded subsoil, basically, at this point. And we were having, as you can't as specifically tell, but the slope from the back of the deck, from the back fence to the deck, was causing water issues under our house, which we had to fix with remediating our crawl space and encapsulating our basement and putting a whole house dehumidifier under our home. This is after, and the permeability has helped significantly, moving drainage down the slope from the back deck to the storm drain, which is directly on the other side of the fence. So all the locations of the pre-existing beds were kept, and where no ground cover could be maintained, we used the high-quality turf. Here's just a fun photo of our wedding in the backyard and our 2 dogs. We talked about the drainage in the other slide. Here is the amount of turf that we've added, as well as the kind of rough estimates of our planting beds. Here is kind of an overview of the tree canopy, to make it a little bit more explicit. There are 3 crepe myrtles, 1 wax myrtle, ironwoods, maples, a sourwood, and a white mulberry, and a holly in the yard. So pretty significant coverage. And very little ability for us to grow turf. And this is, again, the same turf, and why this is an after-effect COA. So, again, very similar to the one you saw before, so I don't think we really need to roll through it.
Majority of this is duplicated.
Majority of this is duplicated because we cribbed their work.
They did a good job.
They did a good job. But our significant struggles basically with this area is, for me specifically, I know again it's mostly what we're talking about here, but you asked me to provide specific different evidence, is the tree canopy and the conversation about permeability. So I don't know how this changes the conversation, but turf grass and soil can really only be built to the depth of roots. Bermuda grass and turf grass typically has about a 2-inch root depth. The permeability of the gravel and the, it's not really bioretention media or but the structural underlay under the turf has actually increased the permeability beyond what was already present in the soil already. I could basically, and again, this is I could stick, it's not evidence, I haven't written it in here, but I could stick a trowel basically about 1/2 inch deep into that compact clay. And considering it was a driveway, that soil had already been degraded excessively over time.
There's also a horseshoe field for a little while too.
Yeah, it was a horseshoe pit when we got in there. So there was really a low level of ability for us to grow anything. And again, I know that y'all aren't maybe able to give specific guidelines or recommendations, but if this is denied, then we'd really, if there was any ability for us to get recommendations as to what permeable or vegetative coverage that we could get, because a non-covered compact clay is also a severe runoff risk. We need vegetation to be able to hold soil in place or some sort of coverage. So if we can't grow vegetation with the light restrictions that we have, I'm concerned about the level of runoff that my yard will have, basically. So I know that's not necessarily y'all's your purview, but that is, I guess, where our concern was to basically remediate and protect the soil that's already in place on site.
And the home.
And our home. And that's enough of us talking.
Thank you. Are there any members of the public who wish to provide comment on the application? All right, seeing none, we'll proceed with committee questions. Y'all stay right there in case there are some questions.
Sure.
Pardon.
Any questions? All right, seeing none, go ahead.
I mean, I think if you listen to the chair's questions for the prior applicant, I think, providing some, if there were to be a path to success with this alternative product, which has not previously been approved in the district, to our knowledge.
Of course.
I think demonstrating evidence that nothing else would grow and I think pairing that with maybe you said it right at the very end of your testimony that if say alternatives were causing harm to your house, that might be compelling evidence to see. Though I will offer, your application does mention special character essays, and we do rely on those heavily. They're very thoughtful. And, this is an old district, and it's, defined by its shaded tree canopy, and it's been that way for a long time.
And we
so,
like that.
We like it.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Yeah.
And so considering how that has been solved elsewhere, if I think of the legacy of Oakwood as a neighborhood and then the duration of time that synthetic turfs have been more common in residential, properties, it's relatively short by comparison, but people have been solving this problem in other ways, other ground covers. I know you mentioned clover, but other soil amendments, mulch, naturally occurring ground coverings. And so I would just say, the special character essay describes the nature of the neighborhood, and I think you could walk around your neighborhood and find the way that other people have, solved similar challenges. Now, it might require a lot of work, and it might not be the aesthetic that you're desiring, but I think if you heard the prior testimony, it would be similar, that it's going to be tough for us to justify without the evidence supporting it.
Oh, yeah. Well, I was just curious. So if we were looking for a preponderance of evidence that it was degrading the property or or the demonstrating an ability to grow other materials, would that be like a certified letter from a landscaper and some stormwater, like hydrology, or like what exactly, I guess, would be an interesting, where you would find it interesting?
Well, I said might when
no,
I qualified it
No,
initially, because again, since we haven't approved it, we haven't been presented with evidence that was compelling enough to approve it.
Of course, I understand.
And if you read through the staff report, there's even, other cases of it being brought to staff and then voluntarily removed. And, I think if I think about the description in the special character essay and then some of those outcomes, I would wonder if there is compelling evidence. So that's why I said there might be, but I can't tell you exactly what that would.
Understood.
It would have to be in an application, and then we would take it on a case-by-case basis.
Of course. Thank you for your information.
I'm not sure if that's helpful, but
no, I mean,
don't want you to leave without some, understanding of where we're coming from on a decision.
I appreciate that.
Any additional questions from the committee? All right, hearing none, we'll close the evidentiary hearing and move to committee discussion. Y'all can have a seat. Thank you very much. The reasoning I provided in the last application to me applies here as well.
Agree.
All right. I'll go ahead and move that the application, or for the reasons stated in the prior discussion for the application, based on the staff report and the evidence presented, I move that the application be denied. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, that's unanimous. It is 6:38. Let's take a brief recess and return at 6:45. to order. The next matter on the agenda is COA 143-2024. This is 920 West Lenore Street. I'll recognize staff for their presentation.
This is case COA 143-2024 for 920 West Lenore Street in the Boylan Heights Historic District. Excuse me. This case is returning to you, or it was on the agenda but has not previously been heard. So some of you may be familiar with the materials, but we haven't actually opened the public hearing for this one yet. So this is a new application before you tonight. It's an after-the-fact request to alter the existing accessory structure, install a rear patio, install a rear site wall, construct a 42-inch fence, and install front porch railing. And you can see from the map here that this is an atypical configured lot where the yard is mostly to the side of the house rather than behind the house. So these are views of the front of the house from Lenore Street and that side yard area where most of the work request is located. Views within the fence and looking back toward the main house. The front porch and railing, the proposed patio and fire pit, and the accessory structure beyond. More views of the accessory structure in that true rear yard area. There's also a fence proposed along the alleyway over there. And just general context views from that alley back toward the street. Summary of staff concerns is that it was unclear if the shed is proposed to be altered is a contributing structure to the district. And then contributing evidence was not provided to support a number of items, including the shed addition's location and lack of a solid foundation, the exterior countertops, shed window proportions, shed window and door unpainted finish, the siding paint, the solid fence located forward of the front wall of the house, and then just generally some complete material specifications were not provided.
All right, I recognize the applicant, and please go ahead and introduce yourself.
Jessica Baker.
And Jessica, if you want to scroll through any of the photos, you can do that with the mouse.
Okay. Will it be this?
Yes.
Okay.
And
Lisa Dombrowski.
great, go ahead. Please raise your right hand. You solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to provide is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
Yes.
Thank you. You may proceed.
Okay. Just a little background. So we bought our home in September 2020, sight unseen, with a local agent here, and relied very heavily on the expertise of the agent and contractors. This home was previously a rental for, as far as we know from neighbors, about a decade, and it needed a lot of TLC. So we started a lot of the work before we even moved here. We moved with an 8-week-old baby, and we were not really solidly informed of the district that we were moving into and the process that entailed. And so we failed to, submit the application during and before, not during, before all this work because just, the reasons I just stated. So I know that doesn't matter in terms of this whole thing, but just a little bit of background. And I know that there's, various comments. I'm not sure if you want to share your comments first and then we can respond, or.
I think the only thing that I would add to that is as we were making decisions, we did have sort of boots on the ground in the area to make.
Please speak into the mic.
Sorry.
Yeah.
I think the only thing that I would add to that is as we were making decisions from California, and once we did arrive here, we did have boots on the ground in the area that was trying to assimilate or have care that was taken to the aesthetic of the neighborhood so that it wasn't, just this other new thing. We understood that we wanted to create more of a home and put some love into this and really remain there. And so as we were sort of identifying things that we needed to do that for not only our safety, we were relying on sort of the look and the charm of some of the neighbors that, you know, we would walk by, drive by, or see pictures of from the limited use that we had.
Is that all?
I mean, we have a lot of like information, but I just don't know how you want, like.
So in terms of, I think we should just go through, like, do you want us to just go through the staff comments and provide?
Yeah, so you are the master of your application. You can present it how you want to. If you just want to respond to committee questions, that's up to you as well. But you are able to make any presentation you want to make.
Okay. We're willing to respond to questions, and then we can continue and start from there.
Yeah, let's do that. The committee can raise their issues, and then you can respond to that. So, but first, let me make sure that if there's any public comments on the application. Are there any members of the public who wish to provide comment on the application? Okay, all right, please come forward. Y'all have a seat off to the side. Please state your name and address.
Kim DeCoste and
Frank Sheets.
we're at 905 West Lenore Street.
Okay.
Diagonally across the street.
Let me go ahead and have you raise your hand and swear you in. Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you all are about to provide is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
We do.
You may proceed. Please speak into the microphone.
We just wanted to be here to voice our support for Jessica and Lisa. We have found that the improvements that they've made to their property to us appear to be in incongruence with the neighborhood. The fences very similar to other side yard fences in the area, and because of the unusual shape of their property, I feel like there's a rationale for allowing that fence to be treated as a side yard fence. And then the other structures are essentially the fire pit, the patio are not visible from the street and so are not a problem at all. And the other structure we don't have a problem with either, that we feel like that is also a nice structure. They've done a lot of improvement and improved the property.
And the only thing I want to add to that is that they've, this house being a rental, it was an eyesore for the neighborhood, and they have brought it up beyond, we call it the river house because it looks like it should be on a lake somewhere. And it's, what they've done, just trimming stuff and keeping it up, is just awesome. So
We're in support.
We're in support of what they're doing.
Thank you. Yep, sir, ma'am. Please, if you haven't already, please sign in on the dais. Okay, good. All right. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Hi, I'm Elizabeth Morantz. I live at 1003 West Lenore Street. Their backyard is directly out my front door. That's my view. Totally support everything that they did with it.
Before you get going, let me swear you in first.
Oh,
Please,
sorry.
yeah. Do you solemnly
I
swear?
did this a few years ago, but I didn't have to do this part because I was online.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to provide is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
You may proceed.
I need to start over.
Sure, that's fine.
Okay. Elizabeth Morantz, 1003 West Lenore Street. I support everything that Jessica and Lisa have done with the property. We bought ours in 2019, and it was definitely an eyesore for all the years until they purchased it. I see the backyard directly out my front door, and so it's my view, and feel like all of their choices are very much in keeping with the neighborhood and have really put a lot of thought and care into their choices. And that's it. I just support what they did.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Are there any other members of the public who'd like to provide comment on the application? All right, seeing none, we'll proceed with committee questions and have the applicant come on back up.
I have several. So, welcome to North Carolina. Welcome to Boylan Heights. I live close by, so thanks. And I know this was a lot of information to put together. So, hear your hardships of moving across the country and trying to do work and buying a house sight unseen. But we've got guidelines that we're here to enforce, and so I'll start with just a couple of questions. I think many of the items that are listed in the staff report are resolvable. Things like the the railings, I think, are resolvable pretty easily. We've seen other similar applications of railings in that district. So I'll start with in this photo, we can see the low fence, and the staff report, cited the guidelines about fences in the front yard, and with a max height of 42 inches, 65% opacity. So it seemed like there were potential options: keep it the same height, move it back to the front-facing wall of your house rather than the front of the porch, or leave it where it is and make it more transparent. One of those seems very simple to me, relatively simple. I don't know if you have that's one of the items in the staff report that I think would be pretty good to get clarification on.
Yeah, so where is it? 903 West Lenore Street has a side-facing 54-inch non-opaque fence that, according to the guidelines, is side-facing, which is listed. And that seems to be approved by a COA in 2015. And there's a similar home on Lenore. I think it's a 1,000 Cabarrus with a non-transparent 6-foot fence. So I'm curious, what the guidelines were and how that fence got approved, and if we could apply, similar reasoning to this situation, considering the fence is lower and you can still see in the yard.
Possibly. So the staff report did provide some context for both of those, because you did list those in your application. So I appreciate you bringing those forward. I think if I'm not mistaken, and staff correct me, but in the case of 903 West Lenore, so it's on the corner of Lenore and Cutler, I believe the taller fence you're speaking of, it aligns with one of the walls of the house, and in that condition, it's a true corner, and it is seen as the rear yard, but it's set back from the street. In the context, it is taller. You're right. It's taller than the one that we see in this photograph here, but this fence, I think we would have to say, is a side or front yard fence, and it's aligned more closely with your front porch.
Is there any concessions to be made for the dissimilar lot size, as written in the guidelines for Boylan Heights, lots? Ours is one of the more unique sidelines, and therefore we don't have a backyard. And this is essentially that piece of it. Therefore, that's kind of where we kind of hit it, a snag, where we're this is...
The other piece that we were looking at is, as we did navigate this with our landscaper, with our contractor, the other piece we were looking at is the way that the erosion and that hillside does come down. And so part of what is behind that fence is some natural materials to help with drainage, a drain pipe that was, helping to alleviate some of the water poolage that was happening and destroying this yard, as well as the foundation. There's clear damage that has been done to the foundation that we had to remedy because of water. And so the reason behind the location of that side-facing fence is so that we can allow for the drainage to come down that slope versus pooling against our house and our foundation.
Understood. That's helpful context. The guideline, I think with its current location, we would likely ask to see it with greater opacity. That would be a possible solution. You also mentioned a house on Cabarrus in the staff report. I know that on that house, there is a tall fence, and it is close to the front of the house. The staff report did note that fence was an in-kind replacement that had been there, for decades. So it's different in that there was not a fence here previously. So this is just one question. I'll also let my fellow commissioners have others, but I'd say give some consideration to the guidelines. It's 1.4.11, which talks about the front yard fence height, and it is cited in the report.
Yeah. Can I ask a clarifying question
Sure.
in terms of opacity? So, and, you know, this is in part sort of, you know, an element of privacy, right? Which we all want within our homes. Two, an element of safety, and in a sense, sort of constructive notice that we have 2 animals and a 2-year-old, right? One of our dogs jumps over the fence, and she may have jumped over at you before, right? And so our goal in this was to create an area and a space that we can recreate, play, and in a non-dissimilar way to some of the other things that we heard. And so I'm hoping that perhaps as this Boylan Heights neighborhood turns over and, you know, maybe it could, as it develops, as you said earlier, become more congruous with, you know, a larger influx of families and animals and different things outside that we've had. So what exactly, when we say opacity, is it that you can see through something? Can I drill holes in it? Do I have to remove, and I'm not trying to be smart, do I have to offset boards? Like, what is opacity?
So, and forgive me when I recited the section, I had it reversed. So it's 65% solid versus, and that would mean the remaining 35% is open. So if you have, what you would frequently see is some form of a picket fence where you have picket and then maybe an equal space, that would be 50% solid, 50% open. So, you know, you could potentially, the way you see it most commonly in the historic districts is a pattern of solid board to open and then solid board to open. And that might vary in, you know, a decorative pattern, but I hope that gives some context for it.
Yep. Does that allow us to make it higher?
I don't know if the current height was included in your application, but 42, that specific guideline does say 42 inches is the maximum height. It's difficult to tell, but it seems pretty close to where you're at. Just eyeballing it, unless you know.
It fluctuates.
Yeah.
Does it count that you can see 100% over the fence?
No, that
so low?
65% is about the fence itself. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Okay.
So
I think we're clear on that. Yep.
okay, and then so talked about. I mean, I think the railing design. Understand why you put railings. We get it. I mean, my fellow committee members may have some questions, but it seems relatively compatible with the house. Could we talk a little bit about the shed and the one that has, you know, now had I think it's had a bar added, it had some windows added, and it has a projecting object over the property line.
Yep.
So, and I think the staff report also mentions maybe questionable foundation, but let's just talk about maybe the shed and how it came to be. There's some, it seems like there's conflicting evidence, but tax records did show that there was a garage and shed listed, but it hasn't really appeared on Sanborn maps.
That's right. Yeah.
So the shed, to our knowledge and in looking at both maps and tax records, was non-historic. Mind you, this is a 6x6 shed. Like, so I just want to say, like, there are a lot of pictures. These are very close up. This is not a very large amount of space. And so as we were developing and moving in, it became a hazard that as we were closing the plywood door that originated with this shed, it was wobbly, it was unsafe. It was rat infested, it was rotted, and so we were very thoughtful in the way that we designed this shed to look similar to not only structures that exist within the neighborhood, but our own home. as you are looking at this from, approaching from Stoke Street, you see the top third. As you're walking by our house, it looks as though it is an extension of our house in the matching of colors, the matching of the stain to the wood, to the upper shakers that are on our, the front of our house, the front facade of our house. So
I'll just say, the roof design did not change. The only thing that changed was that we boxed it in and we added the lights. The way it laid is exactly how it was. We then, according to the guidelines for sheds, where is that? We used materials and finishes for proposed garages or accessory buildings that were compatible with the principal structure. And so when you look at the front of our home, we have cedar shakes that were unpainted. They were wood. We stained those when we painted our home, and we did that so that all of the exposed wood on the property, including the fence, including the windows, all kind of blended together. The granite countertops, we chose to do a countertop to make it more functional, a more functional space in the outdoors. And the reason that we went with the color in the design is because when you are standing from the sidewalk, you can't see it because it's parallel, it's black, and it blends with the, overall nature around us. So, what we did was we took a dilapidated, shed that was not useful in its current structure and standing, and made it something that we thought was consistent with what existed. And the other thing is the board and batten, right? Like, the reason we designed or put the board and batten on there is because the base of our home has board and batten design. So I can see what I do think, right? And when we painted, it was a temporary thing, and we just never ended up getting around to changing the paint. So if it were more monochromatic and, painted all green and with your standard white trim, like, if that is something that, would appease the board, we are fully in support of doing something like that. Just know that, like, when we did design, we did it with everything was with the concept of tying it all in with what we see in the community and with our principal home.
Okay, that's helpful. Thank you. Is the roof of the shed this? It looks like it's the same slope. Is it the same size as what was there before, or did it get a little bigger? Does it project more?
We would have to do a little research. I couldn't tell you off the top of my head.
Okay, and then tell me a little bit about. I was here last month, and I'd read through and was prepared to see this case then, and help a little bit with. There's a portion of it that's on the back that I think is over in your neighbor's, technically in your neighbor's yard.
So we put a refrigerator in a small drink fridge in there, and we are friendly with our neighbors and got their approval ahead of time. I actually printed out, I think they're in my bag, but my papers are all over the place, a signed copy of the application for the owners.
Yeah, that's new information as of this afternoon. So just to provide an update, the neighboring property owner at 922 West Lenore did provide a joint signed application form.
Okay.
So it's for that portion, the attorneys are now considering that at least a legal request for that property through this application.
Okay, and then, so for the, it seemed like you provide a lot of good evidence in your application, but for the countertop specifically, I think you provide plenty of evidence that there's other ADUs or sheds throughout the district. Help me with the countertop. Is there some precedent for that? I think there was one photo of an outdoor countertop in your application.
I'm not sure if, what?
Go ahead.
You can say.
I think I guess, what is the question? Is the question to show that there are more countertops? Is that what you're asking, or?
Asking for some evidence of something of this function that's been previously approved.
I don't know that I would necessarily say that there is another countertop in the area.
We've seen.
That I've seen. I haven't been in every backyard. I don't know that, if we're looking at something that is congruous, I don't know that I can provide it, but what I do know is that, like, it doesn't go against anything that is stated or shared, and there is an example within, the very guidelines that highlight the new construction that say, everything has to be congruous, and there's an inset porch on page, whatever of your new construction guidelines. So it's not that it exists right now, but what we're asking for is for it to continue to exist. Is it
incongruous?
Is it so defunct and incongruous that it can no longer exist?
I mean, I see where you're going with that. All right, let's talk a little bit about and the reason we're asking these questions is this is an evidentiary hearing, and it's an opportunity for you to present evidence. It's not just precedent, but I think congruity can take many forms. So I don't think it's not a gotcha question to ask you, is there another counter? Okay, no, we can't do any countertops outside. That's not the purpose of that question. It's just literally asking you, have you found other examples? So I don't want it to come off.
Only the one that we shared in our findings.
That's fair. And then there are a lot of examples of retaining walls throughout the district. I mean, it's a very common feature. It's a hilly neighborhood, so it might help to have just some understanding. I think there's the extents are shown on your site plan, but maybe what the material is. Normally we see a material spec. It looks like it's maybe a stone veneer, but
I thought I put that in there. Is it not in there?
It's a lengthy application, so I could have overlooked it.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I did, but if I didn't, I can bring that.
Okay. That's all my questions for now. I know there was a lot, but it's a long application.
Any other questions from the committee?
Was there any attempt to salvage or reusing the materials that were congruous to the existing ADU?
We used them on rotted boards when we painted on our primary structure.
Any other questions from the table? All right, seeing none, we'll close the evidentiary portion of the hearing, bring the matter to the table for discussion. Y'all can have a seat. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Everything.
And I'll just mention something in the staff report, because I noticed it the first time around. I think part of the application listed it as an ADU, but I think we should probably use the phrase shed. Is that right, Aaron?
Yes, or accessory structure. Just,
okay, accessory structure. Thank you.
Guidelines.
Okay.
So the larger existing shed structure is not considered an ADU?
So no, but the COA process also doesn't review use. So an ADU is a specific zoning permitting term for an accessory dwelling unit that would need to be permitted through the city. So just given that isn't really related to the physical building form, which is really what this process reviews, it's less confusing to, and more accurate legally, to just refer to it as an accessory structure.
I'm also trying to understand the different contributions that the smaller structures have to the larger property. There was some confusion as to when the shed showed up on the Sanborn map. Is that correct?
That's a question for staff. Yes, so there is gray area as to whether this, when this building was constructed and the neighboring accessory structure on the lot. So the application materials, in those materials, the applicant provided a screenshot of the Wake County tax page, which lists both of those structures with a 1950 construction date. The tax pages are not really reliable for early construction dates, especially for buildings that get overlooked in these sorts of documentation exercises. For instance, the main structure, I think, is listed with a 1930 construction date when it appears on the 1914 Sanborn map, so that's included as staff evidence with the staff report. Just based on the physical materials that are used, the fact that it's integrated with the wall, it doesn't appear to have ever been permitted or documented as a footprint on any of the historic maps like the Sanborns. It's just, it looks early enough that, nobody really paid attention to when it got built, but it's unclear when exactly that happened. So for the purposes of congruity, whether something is a contributing property is just whether that was constructed within the period of significance for that specific historic district. So in the case of Boylan Heights, that would be, was it there prior to 1930? And we just aren't sure. So.
Question for staff. I understand this is a joint, and for our attorney, I understand this is a jointly signed COA. How does a projection onto another property, how does that, convey over time? Would the COA be continuous if, say, the neighbor was under new ownership?
That would be a private issue. So if you're talking about like an easement or some other legal instrument, but for the purpose of this application and approving this COA, it is a joint application because there's both signatures of the property owner. So that's the concern today.
Yeah, I think those legal issues are going to be outside of our purview for whenever future conveyances happen down the line.
Okay. That doesn't, but it doesn't feel like a congruous condition.
No, yeah. I'm glad you brought that up because I was also going to say, there isn't really any evidence of such structures extending out on a neighbor's property line in the district.
And it may exist just because of narrow lots, odd lot configurations.
Oh yeah,
but
encroachments happen all the time, and either they get overlooked or, but yeah.
Okay. I think I've held the floor for long enough. If you all have any other thoughts.
Yeah, I'm just still struck by how much the original shed matched the other accessory structures in the original building.
In its original. Yeah.
I think in addition to the windows, being not in the same proportion as either the existing windows on the main residence or what we see on other accessory structures or sheds throughout the district. There are examples of boxed-in eaves, but I think that the actual overhang in those examples is a lot narrower, and the overhang with the boxed-in eaves gives this makes it to me very incongruous. Maybe if we were to see that open and have, see exposed rafters, that might help because there were examples of larger overhangs that had that condition. One other thing that I noticed, it mentioned that the roof, the standing seam was the same material as the main residence, but it looks like from some of the photos that the flat portion of the main residence is actually smooth, whereas there are intermediate striations on the accessory shed.
Yeah, the overhead photo shows that, and I unfortunately found that helpful because I noticed the same thing. it's yet another roof type.
I could approve the application, but it would be subject to the conditions in the staff report. I know we talked about the fencing that's mentioned in the staff report and the potential conditions. Correcting that to make it congruous with the guidelines. I mean, it does require that that new addition be removed. I think there's just no evidence of a protrusion like that that's been presented. But,
I don't know that
is there another?
I don't know that don't know that the applicants would necessarily want that, but I mean, I don't know if it's worth asking. I mean,
we could hold it open and see if there's evidence that can be presented, but
I do think I'm with you on the conditions, Wes.
I feel like there might be ways that some of our concerns can be addressed with the shed.
Yeah, with either.
I mean, a redesign of it.
Yeah, or.
I'm assuming that it could, it's the same footprint, same foundation. It's really about what was happening above that, right? That brick.
Mm-hmm.
I was going to say, sorry, the staff potential conditions are what solve that for the shed.
Yeah, and I agree with what Melissa said, and Bong, I think, staff, are we correct that after the fact we are to be evaluating it as if it was not already there, right? So
Yes, that's
so maybe Bong, I don't know if that helps, but like if you think of if you're presented this as the design and you're like, well, it had shake on it before, and that's a compatible material because it's literally on the primary structure. Would this change be congruous? I think that's difficult to say yes.
Yeah, without seeing
holistic
design.
Without seeing design documentation and evidence.
Yeah. So, I mean, I kind of feel like, well, could we defer and have them come back and address some of those concerns with an alternative design that they're might be open to?
It might be a question for staff or an attorney. I mean, this is an after-the-fact COA. Can a part of that COA process be a proposed redesign or a proposed new design? Or is that a new COA application?
I think that is ultimately an applicant question. So with the after-the-fact application, of course, it's an unfortunate situation for everybody involved that we know this exists, and it's difficult to review in that way from a personal standpoint. But that you don't see things like proposed drawings, which would typically be required to demonstrate the changes, because all it takes is a photograph to demonstrate the finished condition they would like to request. So really what you're asking about is, would the applicant be willing to bring forward a revised application to amend the work request, in which case they would just need to bring forward revised materials to show what their final request is, if not this. That would be a question for the applicant, ultimately. And Molly, I don't know if you have anything to add.
I'll just add that don't have to defer because of a design change. If it could be specified in a condition, you could do that, or the applicant can amend their application on the record if they wanted to do that.
And I think that's most specifically to the deletion of items, because that's just removing something from the request. And of course, for any amendments that require seeing some sort of visual change beyond removal, We can suss that out together if and when it comes time to try to craft a new condition.
And the cleanest
But
way
there
to,
are limits to that.
I mean, the cleanest way to do this may just be approve the application based on the conditions, and then if the applicant wants to make changes or redesign, then that can be brought forward in another application. Probably a minor work, maybe, but I don't know.
I would like to give the applicants an opportunity to maintain their asset if they can find a way to meet the intent.
Agreed. I think that's just the way, it's just a question of how we want to do that and how they want to do that. I think proceeding with approving the application based on the conditions wouldn't stop them from, it's going to result in the new addition being removed, but it wouldn't stop them from making a change to the structure, to the accessory structure.
I have a question for staff. Once, if we were to approve with these conditions, is there a time limit that the conditions have to be met?
So for an after-the-fact application, if there are conditions that something basically be removed, that would be handled with the planning department's zoning enforcement staff, and they establish that timeline and communicate with the applicants, and it's sort of a mutual, when do we think it's reasonable to set a deadline, that schedule gets established, and then they follow it from there. So it can vary. Typically, I think that they usually look for at least some good faith efforts to occur within 90 days. But don't quote me on that, and that's not in code. I think that's just their suggested policy to start off. But it's really up to the applicants and the code enforcement team to figure out what that timeline looks like.
Does that mean that they would have time to resubmit something before the unofficial 90 days and it had to be removed?
So for the purposes of the COA application review, that's just a decision that y'all will make in terms of what work request you can or cannot approve. Okay. If there are items that aren't approved, those are essentially not able to be brought forward in a new request. They have received a previous decision already. If you mean some sort of like amended countertop design versus what's being proposed currently,
Yeah, like if
that would be more of a defer this application to receive those revised designs. But again, that is up to the applicant to offer. So if they're not willing to amend the application, then you all have to decide on what the current work request is before you tonight.
Can we ask them?
Sure. We can bring the applicant back up, open the evidentiary hearing of the, open up the evidentiary portion of the hearing. So you've heard the discussion from the committee. There appears to be a majority concern about the shed protruding into the neighboring yard. I think there are ways to correct that. In terms of proceeding forward, would y'all want to have the application today deferred to present a potential redesign of the accessory structure that doesn't have a protrusion into the neighbor's yard, or would you prefer us to move forward with approving the application subject to the conditions, and then you all can make decisions on how you want to redesign that later down the road?
Can I ask a couple of clarifying questions?
Sure.
So one, the protrusion into the neighbor's yard is not visible on any major, thoroughfare, with the exception of like the alley. Does that impact, why would that matter?
Because it's a general historic overlay district, which means, all sides of the property are subject to review.
Even when the owners have signed the application?
Yes. The purview of or extents of our review are the entirety of the property in a general overlay district.
And what language is, just so I understand, like, it doesn't have a base, there is no square footage on the ground, so like, is there like a specific thing that we can look to say, like, this is incongruous?
The answer
because-
to these questions are more appropriate to come from either staff or our attorney and not from members of the committee.
Just to add a little context, what I have heard the committee say so far is that they don't feel that an addition that crosses the property line is congruous, and they want to offer you the opportunity to amend where the addition would be located on the site, if that is a possibility. You can say no and ask them to weigh in on the current work request. That's a lot of these items are just kind of, they are congruous or they are not, based on the evidence that's presented. So I'm not sure that deferring the application to have the applicant change their design request when they, basically, if they don't want to do that, that's, I'm not sure how else.
It's the same outcome. Yeah.
Right. And in terms of the countertops, I think there is one example provided of, I don't know where that location was. There's no COA approval for it, certainly not historic, but deferring to request more evidence to support a countertop. I am not aware of anything out there that they could bring to strengthen the case. And I know they've done a lot of work to walk around the neighborhood and bring evidence as a part of the application. But that's all I have to offer.
Thank you, Aaron. Any further comment?
The conditions that you're speaking of, they are just for the fridge. It's like, hey, if we can move this fridge back,
Yeah, I guess
we're
clarify
good.
what the
Like,
conditions
what are
are.
conditions? I guess, yeah, can we talk about what all the conditions are so that we?
I think how staff pointed the way forward is, and this is why I wanted to get away from this to like trying to design. The structure as proposed and as constructed, in my opinion, is not congruous with the neighborhood. So if the application is approved subject to the conditions, the result of that is that addition is going to have to be removed. Now, there are 3 other sides to this structure where potentially that addition could be added that doesn't cross over the neighbor's property line. You all have the opportunity to explore that, and that's why, in my opinion, we should just approve the application subject to the stated conditions, and then the applicant can proceed forward how they want to with that addition.
Do you want to clarify the other conditions?
What's that?
Should we clarify the other conditions that
Sure.
are part of this?
Was there anything?
They might be going over them. They might be going over them.
Yeah. So based on what you've heard, is there any further comment from you all?
Question on the eaves. How is it incongruous if they're a little bit longer than other boxed-in eaves?
I think you just answered that by they're a little bit longer, so there's in proportion. We just haven't seen evidence that boxed-in eaves have that large expanse, from the building front of the building face to where they terminate. All of the examples of boxed-in eaves were much narrower overhang.
But does that make it incongruous with the
It does.
overall look and feel of the neighborhood?
I think where I'm getting tripped up is incongruous does not mean an exact replica. And what we are doing and what we tried to do and what we try to maintain is to have something that is pleasing to the eye. Mind you, there is a large burnt orange red barn behind us, right? Like we are trying to have something that is pleasing to the eye, aligns with the aesthetic of the neighborhood, and is functional for our use. Like I understand the wanting to, keep things like for like, but like at the same time, there were great efforts that we went into to make this something that was enjoyed by neighbors, enjoyed by friends, enjoyed by our family, and congruous. Like congruous does not mean replica copies of. If we did that, we would all be living pretty displeased lives. And so our goal was to create something that was functional, that utilized materials that aligned with our house, aligned with the neighborhood, the historic district, and retain as much of, and I really appreciate you asking if we retained any of the original pieces. We did everything we can to preserve and upkeep, including wrapping in tarp and putting them inside our house to make sure that we were like using everything that we could. And so I think like what we're asking for is a little bit of graciousness to know that as this neighborhood is continuing to develop, is continuing to turn over, is continuing to modernize, that we're a part of that as opposed to just this opposition when we're trying to create something.
Understood. Thank you for your comments. I appreciate that. I'm going to close the evidentiary portion of the hearing, bring the matter back to the table. You can have a seat. Thank you. Based on the application presented by the applicant, the staff report, the evidence, I move that the application be approved subject to the following conditions. 1, that the new shed addition be removed. 2, that the exterior stone countertops be removed. 3, that the shed windows be vertically oriented and have a similar proportion to the main house windows. 4, that the shed windows and doors have a painted finish and clear glazing. 5, that the shed siding be painted a single color. 6, that any portion of the fence forward or the front wall of the house be at least 65% transparent. 7, that the new plantings be kept trimmed at no more than 42 inches in height. 8, that the following materials and specifications be submitted to and approved by staff prior to issuance of the blue placard. A, revised shed elevation drawings. B, revised window specifications, including section detail. 9, that the following materials and specifications be submitted to and approved by staff prior to installation or construction. A, revised street side fence design or revised site plan locating the solid street side fence line behind the front wall of the house. B, physical paint samples. And C, exterior lighting specifications. Motion's been made. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Decision will be final after next month's meeting after the minutes are approved and signed. Additional questions can be directed to staff. Thank you. All right. Next and final application on the agenda is new application number 3, COA 3-2025. This is 516 North Blunt Street. I recognize staff for their presentation.
All right, so as you just mentioned, this is case COA 3-2025 for 516 North Blunt Street, which is located in the Blunt Street Historic District, a general historic district. The nature of the request is to install exterior lighting. This is a view of the property from the sidewalk along Blunt Street. And the majority of this application focuses on the front yard and the front wall of the house, so the photos will focus on that, but there is a small bit in the rear yard. So this is a view of the front porch from the front walk. This is a view of either side of the front porch, where some lighting is proposed both in the roof and along the porch floor. A view from the front porch looking at the front wall of the house. And again, from the opposite side, the north side of the porch. And looking out towards the front yard. This is a view of the driveway looking towards the rear. And the back porch where the exterior lighting is proposed. An abbreviated summary of staff concerns is a request for additional clarity on some of the previous lighting approvals, whether this new proposed plan replaces those or is in addition to. The level of illumination proposed on the front facade of the house is a concern, particularly in light of Design Guideline 1.7.7, which states it is not appropriate to indiscriminately light or over-illuminate facades or front yards in historic districts of residential character.
All right, I recognize the applicant. Please introduce yourself.
Good evening. Thank you. Edward Shank here on behalf as legal counsel for the applicant. The matter will be presented by another agent representative.
All right, please introduce yourself.
Thank you. I'm John Klinger with Raleigh Outdoor Living.
All right, go ahead and ask you to raise your right hand. I'll swear you in. Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're about to provide is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. You may proceed.
All right. I want to start with saying that I'm a native from Raleigh. I grew up out 27502. It's no longer that zip code. That's how long I've been here. I went to Combs Elementary and Southeast Raleigh High School, and so I greatly appreciate the work you do here and love the flair of my city. I believe y'all have already been given the original application, had time to review, so I just want to address the concerns in the interest of time. So initially, I did not have the full scope of the lighting plan. It is now updated in sections, I believe, 1, 2, and 3, with the additional materials that I've provided. You'll see that there is still a hanging pendant, which is what was missing from the original plan in the application. I've also provided area photos. I retook them last night. The final photo is taken, I also do photography, it's taken with what the eye will see. I went into pro mode and was able to remove the night vision, so to speak, from our new smartphones to show you what the actual illumination will look like. This particular photo is from 421 North Blunt Street, which is part of the same district. So the updated elevation for the front facade has a new line. It is interior of the cone of light. This is what I would consider a hot spot. It's where the most light will be coming out. And I've provided y'all with the IES graphs from the manufacturer. I have a mechanical engineering degree, and just to let you know, that's pretty spot on with how high it's going to go up. I took the data and did my thing. So on top of that, the photos will show you what else is in the district. And that very last photo is essentially what it will look like from the naked eye on a night like yesterday. Every other photo is taken with night mode on, and so you can see it's much brighter. However, with 421 North Blunt, which is, in my opinion, one of the most illuminated areas, you can see what it will actually look like. So I would not call it, in my opinion, overlit or indiscriminately lit, since it is congruous with 421 North Blunt and other residential area or properties around the area. And I'm open to any questions. Just interest of time, I'm only doing the concerns.
All right, thank you. Are there any members of the public who wish to provide comment on the application? All right, please come forward. You can have a seat while the commenters provide their input. Please introduce yourself and provide your address.
Yes, my name is Mark Homeister. My wife and I live at 520 John Haywood Way, apartment 102.
Okay.
And that's directly behind the property.
Please raise your right hand.
Yes.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to provide is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
You may proceed.
Right. Well, I came to speak about the request for strip lighting under the rear steps at 516 North Blunt Street. This hardly seems objectionable, but still, I don't understand how this committee can consider yet another request on this property when the current project looks very little like what this committee has previously approved. Let me review. The plans for this property approved by the COA on October 26, 2023 included a new construction 1,776 square foot, 1.5-story accessory structure in the rear yard, a rebuilt garage or carport, removal of 2 regulated pecan trees, presumably because of their proximity to the accessory structure, the planting of 2 mature replacement trees of a similar species, a tree protection plan for remaining trees with steel posts, orange netting, and protective boards, and a 6-foot rear wood fence to replace an existing chain link fence. Recently, the owners received their license for short-term rental. By the way, the license expires in 974 years. However, 16 months after the approval of the project in 2023, this is where the project stands. The rear yard is clear-cut. A request in October 2024 to install artificial turf in the rear yard was withdrawn. There's been no visible work on the partially collapsed garage. There are no mature replacement trees of a similar species. There is no new fence. There is no visible protection around the remaining trees. And most significantly, plans for any accessory structure obviously have been abandoned. This week, irrigation pipes were laid where the accessory structure was to have been located. So I wonder, how is this committee now determining what is appropriate for this rear yard? This request for exterior lighting in the rear yard is made, quote, to create an enjoyable atmosphere for the use of the occupants during celebrations and events. Surely strip lighting underneath 4 steps will not accomplish this. So how much more lighting can we expect to be requested? There's one word, events, that keeps appearing in COA requests as well as promotional materials for the 1893 house. The 1893 House Instagram page says, planning corporate retreats for 2025? Look no further. A corporate retreat with 4 bedrooms. The logical conclusion is this. What we have here is the intent to turn the rear yard into a large, wide open, tree-free, and surely well-lit event space with no stated plans for plantings to keep the light and attendant noise from affecting a large family home next door, as well as adjacent carriage houses and townhouses. For our dense, historic, and residential area, to me, that at least feels incongruous. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any additional members of the public who wish to provide comment on the application? Please state your name and address.
Maggie McDonald. I live next door at 520 North Blunt Street.
All right, please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to provide is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. You may proceed.
So I brought pictures at night as well. So I noticed in the application, the pictures they provided were taken during the day, and next to it, it said, as you can see, no ambient light. At night in this area, there's a ton of ambient light. As you can see in one of the photos, there is a street light located directly in front of their house on the same side of the street. That is the first photo. So that is with no lights on in their house. The second photo is taken from my property, which is 15 feet away from their property. In that photo, you can see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 street lights. If you've driven or walked down North Blunt Street at night, you know how very bright it is. It's a busy area. The second picture is taken with my porch lights on, so you can see how well lit the pathway and the grass is and the sidewalk just with our downstairs lights on. The third picture is showing the lighting from the back alleyway. That is with all of my lights off in the back and obviously all of their lights off. So that's just ambient light. I do want to say I oppose the lighting, especially in the front. I think it's excessive. We have 3 bedrooms on that side of the house that are 15 feet away from their house. So to me, it's just completely excessive. It doesn't fit with the street at all. And those are my objections to it.
Thank you. Are there additional members of the public who'd like to provide comment on the application? All right, seeing none, I'll provide an applicant the opportunity to respond to the public comments.
I guess we'll just go in chronological order. I can't speak to the remaining plans for the other accessory units on the property. I know I've spoken to Mr. Forbes in the past, and he has mentioned putting those up. It's a work in progress, so I don't think you can really judge it based off where it is. You have to judge it based off the plans, which y'all have approved in the past. As for enjoyment of the colored lights, they are what they are. It is a thing that's going on right now. I believe staff comments even mentioned that it is not an issue. If I am correct, that there's no issue with the overlay district. They are also warm white lights, and they have the ability to only put out light from individual pixels. So when they are not being used, they will simply be safety lights. As for the other lighting, I believe on the front, we're concerned about lighting trespass. I went pretty deep into that in the application, and I think that speaks for itself. Not only is it shielded, it's below the source. We have a 15-degree bulb. If they can see the light, they're trying to see the light. As for the ambient light, I'm sure there's plenty out there. I went out there last night. I disagree. It's not well lit, in my opinion. I believe we could probably take a sensor out there and maintain that there's a need for some safety lighting along the path. Please note that I have minimized the number of path lights. In fact, they are spaced a little bit larger than the maximum distance that's recommended by manufacturing and by industry norms, and that was to minimize the runway effect and also to minimize overlighting. As per everything else, these are 2-watt lights. They don't put out much light, and I believe, like I said, to the note in the original application, we were well under the City of Raleigh lighting ordinance per what is in published documentation.
All right, thank you. Now we'll proceed to committee questions. If there are any.
I've just got a couple, if you don't mind. I'm sorry you just sat down. Help us a little bit. You provided some additional information. You talked about the photos, but you provided some printouts. Is there anything different from this elevation than the one that was in the submitted application? The one that you provided this evening, did you change any of the cone direction or like?
So, yes, sir. I believe you actually have the missing Plan B. Everybody else has the same one as the last time. There's a new bulb within it. It's yellow. If somebody would share with him, Mr. Allen. There's a new bulb. It's more of where the light is actually going to be. So when you see the other, do you have the same thing everybody else has?
Yeah, I do.
Okay. So there should be 6 well lights.
Pages.
Is that what you see? So there's a rounded portion inside that drawing, and that is where the light will, that's the extent of actual light. Once you get past that, you drop off pretty precipitously.
Okay.
And that's evident on the bulb IES files that I provided.
Okay.
Yes, sir. So the cones, that really is just the larger cones are really just to show you at extent where it should be visible,
Okay,
if you're looking at the source.
got it. And
Sure.
and then the one other question is on the photos you provided, 421
Yes, sir.
Blunt. Is this one of your installations? Are any of these your installations, or?
No, these are all in the district.
Okay.
So, and that one was approved, I believe, 2016 or 2017.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
I don't have any other questions.
Any additional questions from the committee?
It looks like, according to the photographic examples you provided, I don't count any more than 2 different types of lighting on any of the exterior properties. Do you have any examples? Because in your proposal, it looks like there's 5 different types of exterior, or 6, including the exterior path, 6 different types of exterior lighting. Do you have any evidence of more than 2 different examples of exterior lighting?
I don't currently. I will say that there's only 3 in the front, the well lights, the uplighting, and then the path lights. The rear, from what I saw from staff notes, is and also how I delineated it in the drawings, is a completely separate installation, and it's also bound by different guidelines because it's the rear of the house.
In the front, you said there's 3, but according to the site plan, it looks like there's path lighting, there's accent lighting, there's well lighting, there's a gas light pendant, and gas sconces.
So the same house, 421 North Blunt, has uplighting. I believe they also have pendant lighting, and they also have sconces. They do not have path lighting, so they're just I would say 1 or 2 beneath us. But there's multiple, definitely multiple sources in that one. On top of that, our goal is to make it accent lighting. If you'll look at 421 North Blunt on the page before the final page, you can see that it is well lit underneath. That is not our goal. Our goal is to provide safety lighting, to provide specifically for the balcony. We're aiming at the rake to have indirect lighting on the balcony. It's a 2nd floor balcony that is usable, and so we don't want people to fall off. The path lighting, we can assume that it will be walkable at night, specifically with its other neighbor on the other side. So potentially inebriated people, we're trying to mitigate risk with that one. We're using indirect lighting also to light the remainder of the front porch. This is not about being uplit. This is about safety lighting mostly. We just can't go up and down. It would look terrible from a design standpoint.
Thank you. Any additional questions?
I do have a question, I guess. The new materials do add the hanging pendant light that was previously approved, but they do not address the previously approved front porch recessed can lighting or the gaslight lamppost that was along the front path. Are those still part of the project?
I'll let the owner speak to that.
Yeah, let me swear you in before you start. First go ahead and introduce yourself and state your address.
Hello, I'm Philip Forbes, and I'm the property, developer, project manager of 516 North Blunt Street.
Okay, go ahead and raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're about to provide is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
You may proceed.
All right, so the question was can lighting, I believe, that was not installed. The gas, there is a hanging pennant, was not shown in this photo, but was installed yesterday. And at the sidewalk, I believe it was another gas proposal we're not doing that.
Thank you. Any additional questions from the committee? All right, hearing none, we'll close the evidentiary portion of the hearing, bring the matter to the table for discussion.
it's tough because, it's always tough when there's additional testimony and concerns. However, the application does provide, modeled light data that says it meets the criteria of what's allowed.
Yeah, I understand. Sorry.
Yeah, well, I think really the question for us is it over illuminated based on the guidelines? And as much as we like to be objective, that's, I think, not an easy thing to answer given the context of, some other properties along the street. It's also difficult to, to tell. I'm appreciative of the additional photography and with the night mode turned off because that's helpful, but, our eyes sense things differently. But the foot candle data was provided, which that is helpful evidence.
Yeah, I appreciate the public comments, but they weren't really directed at congruity with the standards and the design guidelines. And the evidence presented by the applicant, in my opinion, meets congruity in the guidelines as well as the evidence they provided of other properties along Blunt Street that have similar lighting. And given the location of this property along Blunt Street in downtown with just a lot of ambient lighting all around, so I'm at an approve.
So I do want to just talk a little bit with, I think Melissa brought up some good points that are related to the guidelines and, over illumination and the quantity of fixtures. So, and I think for the sake of this, I'm not acknowledging the strip lights on the rear just because I don't think that's necessarily our concerns, but, sounds like they'd previously submitted for a pendant light, can lights, and a post-mounted gas lamp. Two of those, the property developer said, are not going to be installed. And then it sounded like this application is introducing 4 new lights: well light, accent light, path lights, and sorry, I had the pendant, so maybe it's 3 new ones for 4 total. I think that's not a lot different than what I see at the Merriman Wynn, but I'm open to discussion about it. It seemed like a lot more light types than when they came up and answered the questions. I don't know if you were satisfied by that or still feel like it's too many fixture types.
I think in the examples provided, it is, as you said, providing ambient light, or there's lights, at specific vegetation. This light that we're looking at really does seem to just be illuminating the residents. That's my main concern.
Mm-hmm. Any other discussion from the committee? Any other concerns? All right, hearing none, I move that based on the evidence presented and the staff report, I move that the application be approved. Motion's made. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed?
No.
All right, that's a 4-1 vote. Congratulations, the application's been approved. Decision will be final after next month's meeting when the minutes are approved and signed.
Thank you for your time and your consideration, your work in the district.
Thank you. Any other discussion or business to come before the committee? Hearing none, we are adjourned till March 27th.